Activists are demanding justice and protections for transgender and non-binary people across the country. 2021 was the deadliest year on record for these groups, according to the Human Rights Campaign. At least 50 transgender and non-binary people were killed over this past year. In tomorrow's episode of 48 Hours, Jamie Yuccas takes a closer look at how the 2019 murder of one transgender teen in Vancouver, Washington, inspired the creation of a law aimed at preventing these types of crimes. Here's a special preview.
17-year-old Nikki Kuhnhausen was like most teens, itching to take on life. Friend Ariel Fox.
She was just like, oh, I'm unstoppable. Down for adventures.
Her mother, Lisa Wood, says it was around 6th grade that Nikki made her gender identity public.
So she started dressing as herself.
As a woman, young woman?
As a young woman.
What's your name? My name Nick. Where you from? New York and this.
And Nikki already had her sights set on her dream job.
She wanted to be Nicki Minaj's hair and makeup artist.
But in June 2019, Nikki disappeared.
That first day, I took her sweatshirt and I made it into a pillowcase, and I slept with her picture and my Bible.
6 months later, Nikki's remains were found on nearby Larch Mountain. Clinical social worker Devin Davis Williamson is a transgender activist.
When trans people go missing, they're usually found deceased.
A recent UCLA Law School study concluded transgender people are 4 times more likely than non-transgender people to become victims of violent crime. The American Medical Association has called it an epidemic of violence.
A transgender woman was found shot and killed over the weekend.
In December 2019, police arrested 25-year-old David Bogdanoff for Nikki's murder. But Nikki's death would not be in vain.
I'm happy to sign this bill.
Washington State has since passed Nikkis Law, which prevents defendants charged with violent crimes from relying on a victim's gender identity or sexual orientation as a defense of their actions.
I want her death to mean something to someone who may contemplate hurting another transgender person.
So Jamie Yuccas joins us now to talk a little bit more about her reporting. Jamie, it's great to have you here. How did police find the man who killed Nikki?
So it's really fascinating, right? We all are on social media now. Nikki was very prominent on Snapchat. She loved taking videos of herself, doing these TikTok demonstrations with makeup and that kind of thing. And it turns out that the man who is involved in this case, that the two of them ended up having these Snapchat conversations. And so detectives were able to go back and look at who she was speaking to and found one person in particular that she was speaking with the day that she disappeared. And that's where they really started to hone in on who they believed their suspect was.
Wow. And then what happened to the man accused of murdering her?
So it's really interesting, right? His name is David Bogdanoff, and he ended up taking the stand in his defense, which is really unusual, right? We don't usually see defendants getting up in murder cases specifically and giving their testimony as to what they say happened. He was very adamant about his side of the story, what he says happened, and you're going to be able to hear that testimony tomorrow night on 48 Hours, which, the prosecution then tried to really tear apart and go in on. But he was very adamant about his side of the story, and the defense really tried to persuade the jury in this case that this was a struggle between these two individuals, and that really Nikki potentially could have been the person who attacked him. So you're going to hear it in his own words, which I will tell you is very fascinating. So I hope you'll tune in and hear that yourself.
They are always, the 48 Hours does such an excellent job. It's always such interesting case, and this is a case that is sort of goes beyond just the case. Nikki's body was discovered approximately 2 years ago. Why do the story now? Why was it important to do the story now?
Well, David Bogdanoff was actually on trial just this past summer. And one of the things that came out through this case was, as we talked about a little bit in the piece that you were listening to, was that there was a new law enacted in Washington state because of this case specifically. So when you go ahead and you start diving into it, there is something called the gay or trans panic defense that a number of states still have that law on the books, that if someone discovers that someone is gay or trans, that they have this sudden loss of consciousness that they go into, and that they potentially use that as a defense in hurting or even killing someone. Washington state says, no, we're going to pass Nikkis Law. It was passed back in March of 2020 in that state where this particular crime occurred. And since then, 6 other states have followed suit, including Colorado, DC, Virginia, Vermont, Oregon, and Maryland. So, in this case, Nikki's mother in particular really wanted Nikki's legacy to continue on and mean something, especially to the gay and trans community. And so this is one way she feels that her daughter's memory can continue on in a positive way and have a positive impact.
Nikki was obviously a big personality, and I can't imagine how altered life has been without her. You sit down with her family and friends. How are they doing?
I can tell you her mother is hurting very, very badly. She's not doing well when we spoke with her. And as you can imagine, as any mother who has been through something like this, they had a very, very special bond. And, Nikki's mother talks about that extensively, that she felt at times that Nikki mothered her more than maybe she mothered Nikki. She misses her daughter every day. You'll hear, some of the pain as we speak with her. She actually carries Nikki with her, in a necklace everywhere she goes, and it was very hard to speak with her. She's really struggling with the loss of her daughter, and she's somebody who really embraced Nikki for who she was, loved her daughter so much. Says it was one of those things that Nikki at a very young age knew who she was. Her brothers embraced her, her mother embraced her father embraced her, and they all celebrated her. You can see her as a little girl here with the wig on that a babysitter brought over. That she the mother told me a story about how when Nikki was little, that she broke her arm and she wanted a pink cast. So Nikki always knew who she was. And part of that, some of the activists tell me, and some of her friends, is why they believe potentially she was targeted, because she was just so confident in who she was and, really loved herself for who she was.
Mm-hmm. Well, Jamie, I know that you never get over this sort of loss, but at least the work that she is doing will hopefully help to protect other parents, other friends from experiencing a similar loss with new laws on the books. Jamie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
You can watch Jamie's full report on 48 Hours tomorrow night at 9 Central on CBS and on demand on our streaming service Paramount+.